game. But Minecraft is really interesting because the modding community mods within the game, but kind of extending it further than just playing with the mechanics and the gamescape. So, for example, here's Mo Creatures. So this adds new animals and monsters to the game very easily. So you can have things like a shark, or a werewolf, or a troll, or a bunny. Bunnies are adorable. And it also kind of plays with the limitations of the game and expands the experience by adding these small elements. So here's, for example, there's a Pegasus that you can ride to fly around Minecraft. So that was a lot better than just walking.
It's a pain to tame.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And so I interviewed Dr. Zark, who created the Mo Creatures mod. And I did this back this spring. And he said that around March 2011, the mod had been downloaded over 99,000 times, which is really crazy. And the forum thread that he had on the Minecraft forums had over 1 million views. And over 450 pages. And I went a couple days ago, and it actually has over 12,000 pages now. Oh, sorry, 1,200 pages. But the mod has been downloaded a ton of times. People use this a lot. And it's probably been downloaded more than that with only the past 6 months since I did this interview. But he says that he never dreamed that this was going to happen, that so many people would be interested in this kind of like tiny side project that he had. And it really encouraged him to keep working on the mod and add more and more features over time. And there are other really interesting mods that have gotten a lot of popularity recently. For example, the Ether mod. So this is developed by a team of people instead of just one person. And basically it creates a new sky world for Minecraft. So there are new enemies, there's a new way to get there, kind of like how you enter the Nether, and it creates these gigantic new dungeons with these really cool bosses. So here's a little explanation.
Hello, and welcome to the Yogscast. Today we're looking at the Ether mod, which has just come out, and I'm playing it. I'm here in defending there against holes. There's a creepers up there. How are you doing, Simon?
I'm doing alright. What on earth is this? What is this?
Okay, this is the Ether portal. You make it like the Nether portal, except with glowstone, and then you pour a bucket of water in there instead of lighting it on fire, and it takes you to the Ether. Okay?
Oh my god, everything's pastel-y and
floaty.
What are those things floating around?
Right. Yeah, there's a couple of things floating around, as you can see.
Yeah, I can't help but notice them.
And I'm already being like attacked by them. They lob snowballs.
Oh, snowballs?
Or eggs.
Eggs.
Whatever. That whenever they hit you, they actually knock you though. So I'm quickly trying to get out of their way. This thing, I have no idea what it did, but it flew me up in the air.
You're nearly dead. Oh my god, be careful. Be careful.
So I've just gone through the portal. I'm nearly dead. But I've got my preparations, you see. I've got pork, I've got like swords and armour. That's just a sheep there.
Is that a floating sheep?
Yeah. Ether sheep just chilling out in midair.
Ether sheep.
Yeah, this is a brand new mob, part of the Ether expansion.
It's just a fat sheep that floats.
Wool.
Wow, George Wool. Is that a plane?
So.
What's that?
No, that's a whale, and like it's a whale, but it's kind of spazzing into
of course it is. Of course, it's a whale.
Yeah, and space whale, like air whale, sky whale, whatever.
So you kind of understand what's going on. But a large amount of these mods are very, very popular. So you can see, for example, I picked out a few from the forums, like the Millénaire, the NPC Village mod. There's like a recipe book that you can update. And then single player commands and stuff like that. And all of these mods have over 1 million views. So, for example, the recipe book one has close to 3.5 million.
Actually, that page is all of his mods, including mod loader, which all mods require.
Yeah. And so they get thousands and thousands of replies over time, which is really, really interesting. And the fact that they're continually updated alongside Minecraft is also really new for game culture. So all this occurs because a small team of coders released this thing called the Minecraft Coder Pack. And basically what happens is that when Notch releases the code as the game, he obfuscates it. So basically that means it's kind of like all jumbled up and you can't really read it. But this team of coders goes in, they decompile it so that they basically release it opened, and then that allows you to re-obfuscate it to code for the development of the game. So basically it helps release the code to the community, because while there's kind of modding support and Notch has said that he's going to add it, it's not super, super easy. So this team of people helps the modders develop the game. And that was how Dr. Zark was able to create Mo creatures. But also, there are mods that don't necessarily have to do with editing the code. So for example, these are kind of like non-traditional mods. This is what I mentioned before, Survival Island, where basically you have to just build with what you have on this tiny island and survive over time. And this was created very easily by someone just creating a map, and it has kind of like implicit mechanics, so it doesn't force you to just use this, but you're kind of like suggested to. But they just allow you to get this map, and you can download it, and then you just play the map. And it's very, very easy for people who don't have to like go in and mess with the code of their game and stuff like that. But it's not really an issue over coding, it's just you create a map and people install it. Very easy. And Survival Island is just one of many, many very simple mods that people have created. And modding really allows players to extend the game in any way that they wish. So from the questionnaire, I was asking about modding practices and what people thought about it. And so one male player said that it's in the nature of indie games. The development of such an amazing game shouldn't be left to just the Mojang team. A lot of mod makers have ideas that Mojang would most likely never think of. So for example, I believe that the Ether region, which I mentioned before, greatly surpasses the Nether implemented in the original version of the game. But there are lots of great ideas in the Ether mod that I think that Mojang could build from, and they could possibly use some of the elements to make the Nether much better. So a lot of people think that these mods are actually very, very beneficial to the modding community and Minecraft players at large. And mods really show the complexity of what fans wish Minecraft could be. So right now, like, Minecraft is a fairly simple game, right? You can't build like all the items in the world that you would want to. And mods allow people to kind of crack open that simplicity that Notch has had, even though that's awesome. I really like that simplicity. And here and there, like, some of the complexity of these mods might be ruining the game a little bit. Like, that's debatable. But the fact that you are able to modify it and create these new experiences is very important. So here's another positive reaction to mods from a female player on the questionnaire. She says, one person or a few can come up with something that makes the Minecraft experience more fun, and then they share that idea. And that's how all these mods start. It means that they have endless possibilities. And the endless possibilities is, of course, really important. You have one game that hasn't even been completed yet, and yet you have all these other games that emerge from it. And Notch, as I said before, has proposed an official mod development implemented into the game. So he says that, like, we're going to have mod developers, and it's going to require you to sign an agreement and all this awesome stuff. But then he said, when he originally posted this blog post, that people were going to have to pay for it, and the community went nuts. So you'll see this edit that it says, he crossed out "this will cost money," and it says edit "no longer costs money," because so many people push back against it.
With an exclamation point.
But there's also a tension to let fans really develop and let Mojang control production, right? So people want to be able to do it, but people also want a real game. And of course, players have dissenting opinions about mods. So for instance, this player says, I'm not sure about an open source code would make it easier to mod. I think ultimately it'd cause problems with so many different ideas that would be implemented. Like, clients wouldn't match and piracy would get worse. Mods could be done without the source code. They just require a little more effort. And there are other hesitant reactions to modding, such as this. It says modders should be serious about modding, and small costs make it so that only the serious modders will use it. So it's kind of like weeding out, and there's this inherent authenticity to what makes a good mod versus a bad mod. And then issues of security too. So if Mojang is going to spend a little time and energy on it, I think users should pay a little extra. Plus, the money acts as a filtering mechanism to get all the bad mods out. And of course, there's an inherent tension to this too, right? Between creative and survival. So right now with Minecraft, we have this creative mode where you can kind of build whatever you want, and this survival mode where you can kind of go on an adventure, but it's kind of not, right? And that's really why Notch is creating the new update so that we can have an adventure mode. But why are mods so successful for Minecraft? And it's really that conflict with the development of the game, because it's not quite complete, and players feel like they need to expand upon it in reaction to this kind of like slow development, even though it's an indie game, so we can kind of make that as an excuse. But why is open source culture important? And it's really because of this kind of free-to-play fallacy, at least from my perspective. So in the open source culture trend, we have this development that basically lots and lots of people can participate in, and then there's this ladder where it's top-down production from a video game company, and you can kind of play for free, but then you're limited with what you can do later. So for Minecraft, you pay a set fee at the very beginning, and then everything is free afterwards, and it's really expansive. But in these kind of free-to-play models, we have games that it's very approachable, so you can just dive into the game immediately and have lots of fun with people. But then once you kind of get bored of it, all you get is hats, right? And there are some games that are kind of tweaking that a little bit. So like Guild Wars 2, for example, doesn't have a subscription, but you have to buy episodes to kind of expand the game later on. But what I'm saying is that the future of game culture is really this opportunity for people to participate in the game as much as possible. So Minecraft is a really great example of that. So the conclusion. As I said before, games have really traditionally been thought of as this kind of top-down experiences. So players only get to play the game. They have no interaction with the game besides that. And there's been a lot of talk recently about how games can change the real world and impact our lives. The obvious example of that would be from Jane McGonigal. She has this great book, Reality is Broken, where she gives all these examples about how games really affect our real world. And she did a great keynote at PAX East back in the spring. But Minecraft has this amazing high level of participation on the part of players. And I think that that is the future, massive participation. So even though we have like all these crazy things like a giant piano that might not matter for people, it really influences how people perceive the game and then interact with it later, especially with other players. But then there's this kind of warning, right? This change over time really affects the changes over time in game culture. So we can't forget that Minecraft is still not complete, and it's been played by millions and millions of people. This is the list of all the updates going into the next update of Minecraft, basically the adventure mode. There are a lot, and that's why the font is so small and you can't read it. But the things that are important about this is that so many updates are being put into the game that this drastically affects how Minecraft works as a game, and therefore it affects how we interact with it. And so before, one example from the update, like normally we would think of creative mode occurring on servers, and you'd like probably play with other people. And adventure mode, normally you would kind of have to do that through mods if you wanted more of like an RPG style game. But now that's totally being changed. So exploring inside the world will be way more rewarding, and combat has been changed, so that experience is very different. But as the game changes over time, so does our experience with the game, and that will affect how our game culture experience at large as well. And so we can kind of philosophize about this a little bit as well, right? So we always see this game over screen, and it never has a score. It's always like ampersand E0. Like, what does that mean, right? But what happens if that score suddenly became more meaningful? Would that change our experience of the game? And would that game over mean something completely different? So I really want to conclude with this quote. One female gamer said on mining and Minecraft as a whole, "As it stands, it's more of a framework than a finished game," which is really great. So these simple tools empower players to expand the game and create their own meaning and stories. And that's radically different from a game that has been developed traditionally. and that's really going to affect the future of game culture. So it's almost over. If you'd like to give me some feedback, feel free to hit up my